Imagine waking up tomorrow and nothing anyone says can ruin your day. Imagine walking through life like a calm river. No matter how hard the storm hits, your center remains untouched. What if I told you that every argument, every insult, every drama-filled moment only has the power you give it, and that power can be taken back? Today, I'm going to show you how to stop giving your peace away, how to detach from the chaos, and how to become completely unbothered, no matter what life throws at you. When we talk about mastering emotional detachment, what we're really talking about reclaiming the power that most people unconsciously give away every single day. Emotional detachment is not about becoming cold, indifferent, or disconnected from life. It is about developing the awareness and control to decide when something deserves your energy and when it doesn't. Most people live their lives in a constant state of reaction, allowing every comment, every insult, every inconvenience to push buttons they didn't even know they had. They wake up, check their phones, and immediately respond to the world's drama as if it were a personal assault. They go to work, come home, interact with friends and family, and constantly feel the ebb and flow of other people's moods, opinions, and expectations. They give their peace of mind away piece by piece without ever realizing it. Emotional detachment is the practice of breaking that cycle. It's about understanding that your reactions are a choice, not an automatic response. It's about realizing that other people's words, actions, and judgments are not inherently harmful. They only have power over you if you allow them to. Imagine walking through a crowded street. People brush past you, some bump into you, some push and shove, yet your body stays upright, your mind stays clear, your focus remains. That's emotional detachment in action. The world can be chaotic, messy, and irritating, but your internal state does not have to mirror it. Learning to detach emotionally begins with awareness. Awareness is the first step because you cannot control what you do not recognize. Begin to notice your habitual reactions. Observe how you respond when someone criticizes you or disagrees with you. Observe the way your body tightens, your thoughts spiral, or your emotions flare. Recognition is powerful because it introduces a pause between stimulus and response, a pause that is essential for mastery. Once you recognize the triggers, you can start to analyze them. Why does a particular word, action, or situation upset you? Often, what bothers you is less about the other person and more about unresolved issues within yourself. Detachment allows you to take ownership of your emotions rather than blaming external sources. You start to see that the discomfort you feel is a reflection of internal vulnerabilities rather than an external attack. At the core, emotional detachment is also a practice in self-discipline. It requires consistent effort because the world constantly tests your boundaries. It demands that you refrain from knee-jerk reactions, from the temptation to argue, defend, or prove yourself. Instead, you learn to pause, breathe, and observe the situation objectively. This does not make you weak, it makes you strong. Strength in detachment is quiet, controlled, and deliberate. It's not about winning arguments, it's about winning peace of mind. Another essential component is understanding impermanence. Everything around you, situations, people, opinions, and emotions, is temporary. When someone insults you, when a situation goes wrong, when disappointment strikes, it is fleeting. By internalizing this truth, you cultivate the ability to respond with calm rather than chaos. You realize that nothing is personal unless you make it personal. This shift in perspective is liberating. Detachment does not mean withdrawal from life or avoidance of responsibility. On the contrary, it means engaging fully with life from a place of control rather than compulsion. You participate because you choose to, not because circumstances force you to react. You contribute, speak, and act with intention instead of responding out of fear, anger, or frustration. People who master emotional detachment often report a profound sense of freedom. They no longer carry the weight of other people's opinions. They no longer feel the constant pull of social validation or approval. They no longer let negativity dictate their moods or their days. They understand that their peace is theirs to protect and that it cannot be negotiated, bartered, or stolen. Detachment also enhances clarity. When your mind is not clouded by emotional turbulence, you can see situations as they truly are. Decisions become clearer, judgment becomes sharper, and interactions with others become more meaningful. You are able to respond with wisdom rather than react with impulse. One practical approach to detachment is to practice mental reframing. When someone says or does something upsetting, instead of immediately reacting, you can ask yourself, what is this really about? What is within my control here? This simple shift in thinking introduces distance between you and the emotional impact, allowing you to handle situations calmly and effectively. Another practice is emotional compartmentalization. This means creating mental boundaries where you separate your core self from external disturbances. You can care deeply about life and people without allowing every little annoyance or conflict to infiltrate your emotional center. Meditation, mindfulness, and reflective journaling are tools that can strengthen this ability. Over time, detachment becomes a habit. It becomes your default mode rather than a conscious effort. You start noticing that you are not reacting to gossip, criticism, or chaos the way you used to. You feel lighter, freer, and more resilient. And the more resilient you become, the more unbothered you are in every area of life. Emotional detachment also empowers you to make better choices in relationships. When you are not emotionally invested in the need for approval or validation, you can interact with people without losing yourself. You can set healthy boundaries, say no when necessary, and avoid toxic dynamics. You do not need to explain, defend, or justify your peace. This is a radical shift from the reactive patterns most people live under. In essence, mastering emotional detachment is about taking back control of your inner world. It is about realizing that true power lies not in controlling others, but in controlling your own mind and emotions. It is about being unshakable, calm, and clear, regardless of the noise outside. It is about living fully in life while refusing to be enslaved by the chaos, drama, or negativity that inevitably exists around you. Detachment gives you the freedom to choose your responses, the clarity to act with wisdom, and the strength to remain unbothered in a world designed to provoke you at every turn. It is a path of self-mastery, a journey inward that creates an unbreakable fortress of peace around your mind and heart. Through awareness, discipline, perspective, and practice, emotional detachment transforms not only how you respond to life, but how you experience it. It allows you to engage with the world fully without losing yourself, to observe without absorbing, to interact without entangling. Over time, this becomes a defining feature of your presence. People notice your calm, your steadiness, your ability to remain centered in situations that would throw others into chaos. It is a magnetic quality, one that commands respect not through force, but through the quiet, unwavering power of someone who has learned that true control is internal, that peace is a choice, and that being unbothered is not an absence of feeling, but a mastery of it. Identifying and neutralizing your triggers is one of the most important skills you can develop if you want to stay unbothered. Every person has triggers, specific words, actions, behaviors, or situations that provoke an emotional reaction. The challenge is that most people have no idea what their triggers are, and even when they do, they give those triggers power over their lives. A trigger is only as powerful as the attention and energy you give it. If you never learn to recognize it, you will continue reacting automatically, allowing others to control your emotional state without even knowing it. The first step in neutralizing triggers is awareness. This means observing yourself in real time and noticing the situations that stir up discomfort, anger, or frustration. Pay attention to your body's response, tightness in your chest, a knot in your stomach, tension in your jaw, or a racing heart. Notice your thoughts, the judgment, the self-criticism, the replaying of past memories. And notice your impulses, the urge to respond, argue, defend, or withdraw. These are signals pointing you to your triggers. Once you can identify them, the next step is to analyze why they exist. Triggers are often tied to past experiences, unmet needs, or internalized beliefs. For example, if criticism from a boss or peer causes you extreme anxiety, it may not be about the criticism itself, but about old patterns of seeking approval, fear of failure, or internalized self-doubt. Understanding the root of your triggers is liberating because it shifts the source of power from external to internal. You realize that the power to be affected does not lie in the other person's words or actions, but in how you interpret them. Neutralizing triggers is not about avoiding life or people. It's about removing the automatic emotional charge. It's about taking the energy that used to be spent reacting and redirecting it into observation, clarity, and choice. One of the most powerful tools for this is pause. When you feel a trigger arise, instead of immediately reacting, take a conscious pause. In that pause, breathe deeply, center yourself, and create distance between stimulus and response. Ask yourself, is this really about me? Does this deserve my energy? What is within my control here? By creating this pause, you disarm the trigger. It loses its ability to hijack your emotions because you refuse to give it immediate attention. Another crucial practice is reframing. Once you recognize a trigger, consciously reinterpret it. For instance, if someone cuts you off in traffic, instead of thinking, "How dare they disrespect me?" you can reframe it as, "They are driving their own path, and it has nothing to do with me." Reframing changes the narrative, which changes the emotional reaction. Triggers often thrive on our habitual thought patterns. The more you react the same way over and over, the stronger they become. Neutralization involves breaking that pattern. This may require mental exercises, affirmations, or even journaling. Writing down the situations that trigger you, your typical response, and a more balanced or detached interpretation helps rewire your mind to respond differently in the future. Emotional detachment and trigger management go hand in hand. Detachment gives you the space to observe, while trigger neutralization ensures that observation remains undisturbed. Over time, you learn to respond to the world not with automatic reactivity, but with deliberate choice. This skill also allows you to interact with others from a position of strength rather than defensiveness. When you are aware of your triggers and have the tools to neutralize them, you can engage in difficult conversations, conflicts, or criticisms without losing control. You respond with calm, clarity, and composure because you are no longer enslaved by emotional impulses. Boundaries play a critical role in trigger neutralization. Triggers often arise when someone crosses a line, physical, emotional, or mental, that you have not clearly defined for yourself. Establishing clear boundaries communicates to the world what is acceptable and what is not, which naturally reduces the frequency and intensity of triggering situations. A person who knows their boundaries is inherently less reactive because they are not constantly caught off guard by behavior they have tolerated for too long. Another layer of neutralizing triggers is self-mastery. The more you strengthen your internal stability through meditation, mindfulness, reflection, and self-awareness, the less likely you are to be thrown off balance by external stimuli. When your center is strong, external disturbances lose their potency. You become like a tree with deep roots. In a storm, the wind may blow, the rain may pour, but your foundation remains firm. Triggers also often reveal blind spots, parts of yourself that require growth, healing, or attention. Rather than avoiding triggers, use them as opportunities to understand yourself more deeply. Ask, why does this bother me? What does this reveal about me? By approaching triggers with curiosity, rather than judgment. You transform potential emotional minefields into tools for personal development. Detachment and trigger neutralization are not one-time achievements. They are ongoing practices. Life will always present new situations, new people, and new stressors. Each new circumstance is an opportunity to apply the principles you have learned to expand your emotional resilience and to strengthen your unbothered state. Over time, a remarkable shift occurs. The things that once provoked intense emotional reactions now pass by like clouds in the sky. You respond only when it serves you, when it aligns with your values, or when it is truly necessary. You gain a profound sense of freedom and clarity. You stop wasting energy on battles that do not matter and focus your time, effort, and attention on what truly enriches your life. People notice the difference. They notice your calm in chaos, your steadiness in storms, and your ability to navigate conflict without losing composure. Your presence becomes magnetic because it radiates control, confidence, and clarity. Neutralizing triggers also protects your mental health. Chronic reactivity creates stress, anxiety, and emotional exhaustion. By identifying and managing your triggers, you preserve your energy, reduce unnecessary stress, and maintain emotional balance. You are no longer a puppet whose strings are pulled by the opinions, actions, or moods of others. Ultimately, identifying and neutralizing triggers is an act of self-respect. It signals that you refuse to allow external circumstances to dictate your inner state. It affirms your commitment to remain unbothered, to cultivate peace, and to operate from a position of awareness and choice. It is a declaration that your emotional well-being is non-negotiable. By practicing this consistently, you create an unshakable foundation. You engage with the world fully without being consumed by its turbulence. You maintain your clarity, your focus, and your peace regardless of what others say, do, or think. And in doing so, you step into a new realm of freedom, where you are no longer at the mercy of triggers, but instead, you are the master of your emotional landscape. Building unshakable mental and emotional boundaries is one of the most transformative steps you can take on the path to staying unbothered. Boundaries are not walls meant to isolate you from the world. They are fences that protect your energy, your peace, and your focus. They define where you end and others begin. They establish what is acceptable in your interactions with people and what is not. Without boundaries, you are constantly vulnerable to the expectations, judgments, and negativity of others. You become a sponge, absorbing emotional chaos, criticism, and manipulation without even realizing it. Strong boundaries, on the other hand, create clarity. They tell the world who you are and what you will tolerate, and they serve internal compass for your behavior and responses. To build unshakable boundaries, you must first understand yourself. This requires deep introspection and honesty. Ask yourself, what drains my energy? What makes me feel unsafe, unvalued, or disrespected? Which relationships, conversations, or environments consistently leave me feeling depleted? Understanding these elements is essential because boundaries are personal. They are not borrowed from someone else's rules or societal expectations. They are a reflection of your values, your priorities, and your self-respect. Once you understand your limits, the next step is to communicate them clearly. Unshakable boundaries are not hidden, they are visible and known. You don't need to announce them loudly to the world, but you do need to express them through words, actions, and consistent behavior. For instance, if someone repeatedly interrupts you, speaking up calmly and assertively establishes a boundary. If a friend or colleague constantly disrespects your time, declining their demands without guilt communicates that your time is valuable. Boundaries are not negotiable. They are statements of self-respect. Another critical aspect of building strong boundaries is learning to say no. Most people fear saying no because they worry about disappointing others, being judged, or missing out. But every yes given without intention is an erosion of your peace. Saying no is not selfish, it is necessary. It is a declaration that your energy, focus, and well-being are priorities. People who master boundaries do not apologize for their no's. They understand that their yeses are more meaningful when given deliberately, not out of obligation or fear. Boundaries also require vigilance. They must be maintained consistently. A boundary that is crossed once and ignored is a weak boundary. People quickly test the limits of what they can get away with, and if your boundaries are not firm, you will be taken advantage of repeatedly. This is why consistency is key. Your words and actions must align. If you claim to value your peace but tolerate behavior that disrupts it, you are sending mixed signals. Mental and emotional boundaries also involve controlling what you allow into your mind. The modern world bombards you with negativity, criticism, gossip, and conflicting opinions. Without mental boundaries, you internalize this chaos, allowing it to dictate your mood, your decisions, and your sense of self-worth. Part of unshakable boundaries is filtering your mental diet. Choose what you focus on, what you believe, and what you give attention to. Refuse to consume energy, draining content, toxic conversations, or self-sabotaging thoughts. This is not avoidance, it is preservation. Another layer of boundary building is emotional self-regulation. People often cross boundaries because they sense weakness or vulnerability. When you remain calm, composed, and centered regardless of provocation, you naturally establish a line that cannot be breached. Your emotional state becomes your strongest boundary because it is impervious to manipulation, guilt, or criticism. Unshakable boundaries also protect against emotional enmeshment. Enmeshment occurs when you absorb other people's emotions, problems, or drama as if they were your own. While empathy and compassion are valuable, losing yourself in others' chaos is destructive. Boundaries allow you to engage compassionately without being consumed. You can support, advise, and care for others while maintaining your peace. It is the distinction between being involved and being entangled. Setting boundaries often reveals who respects your energy and who does not. This clarity is invaluable. Some relationships may need recalibration or even removal because the other party consistently violates your limits. Recognizing this is not cruelty, it is self-preservation. Life is too short to allow consistent disrespect, negativity, or intrusion to compromise your mental and emotional well-being. Another important principle is that boundaries are proactive, not reactive. Do not wait until you feel violated, drained, or resentful to enforce them. Establish boundaries in advance so that interactions are guided by clarity rather than emotion. When people know your boundaries upfront, interactions become simpler, less stressful, and far more respectful. Building unshakable boundaries also involves introspective reflection on your internal responses. Ask yourself, why does this behavior trigger me? Why do I allow this invasion? Often, weak boundaries are tied to self-doubt, fear of conflict, or the need for approval. Strengthening your inner confidence naturally reinforces external boundaries. The more secure you are in yourself, the less others can manipulate, pressure, or provoke you. Mental and emotional boundaries also extend to your time and energy. Your priorities must be clearly defined. Time spent reacting to unimportant matters, engaging in drama, or pleasing others at the expense of your own goals is time wasted. Boundaries help you focus on what matters, enabling productivity, clarity, and fulfillment. Practices like daily reflection, meditation, journaling, and conscious planning strengthen these boundaries by reinforcing awareness and control over your attention and energy. Importantly, building boundaries does not mean avoiding conflict or becoming emotionally detached from life entirely. It means choosing your engagements wisely, responding intentionally, and refusing to allow unnecessary negativity or intrusion to disturb your equilibrium. Boundaries empower you to maintain integrity, clarity, and peace in all aspects of life. Over time, as boundaries become unshakable, a remarkable transformation occurs. You no longer feel drained, overwhelmed, or manipulated by external circumstances. You operate from a position of strength, calm, and clarity. You can interact with anyone, navigate any situation, and face challenges with composure because your inner fortress is intact. People notice your stability. They sense the energy you protect, the calm you radiate, and the clarity in your presence. Boundaries are not visible walls. They are felt in interactions, in tone, in behavior. They communicate a quiet but powerful message. You are in control of your mind, your emotions, and your life. Building unshakable mental and emotional boundaries is ultimately an act of self-respect, self-awareness, and self-mastery. It is a continuous practice, reinforced daily through awareness, reflection, and intentional action. It creates a foundation upon which emotional detachment, trigger management, and unbothered living can flourish. Boundaries are not rigid, they are flexible yet firm. They allow you to engage fully with life without sacrificing your peace. They protect your energy, safeguard your focus, and ensure that your mind remains a sanctuary rather than a battlefield. And as you continue to cultivate these boundaries, you experience freedom, empowerment, and the unshakable calm that comes from knowing that no matter what chaos surrounds you, you remain untouchable at your core. Cultivating presence and inner peace amidst chaos is the final piece in the puzzle of staying unbothered. Presence is the art of fully inhabiting your own mind and body in the current moment, free from distraction, worry, or reactivity. It is the conscious awareness that allows you to observe life without being swept away by it. Inner peace is the natural result of presence, a calm, centered state that remains intact regardless of external circumstances. Most people live fragmented lives, mentally elsewhere while physically existing in the present. They dwell on the past, fret about the future, or constantly react to stimuli without ever pausing to observe. This lack of presence makes them highly vulnerable to disturbance. If you are not anchored in the now, chaos has a way of finding you, invading your mind, and dictating your emotions. Cultivating presence begins with awareness. Awareness is the lens through which you see your thoughts, emotions, and surroundings clearly. It allows you to recognize when you are being pulled into negativity, drama, or stress. It is the pause between stimulus and response that Jefferson Fisher often emphasizes, the space where freedom and choice exist. To develop presence, start with the breath. Breathing consciously grounds you in your body and the moment. Each inhale and exhale becomes a reminder that life is happening now and that you are an active participant, not a passive reactor. This simple act of returning to the breath interrupts the habitual patterns of reactivity that keep most people entangled in emotional turbulence. Presence also requires letting go of judgment. Most emotional disturbance arises from labeling experiences as good or bad, right or wrong, just or unjust. When you judge, you amplify the emotional charge. When you observe without judgment, you create space for understanding and calm. Life becomes a flow of experiences, and you learn to respond from clarity rather than impulse. Another essential practice is mindfulness, the conscious attention to your thoughts, feelings, and actions without becoming attached to them. Mindfulness allows you to witness your mind's activity without identifying with it. Thoughts, emotions, and external events are seen as passing phenomena, not permanent realities that must control your behavior. Over time, this creates a buffer against being shaken by others, criticism, or conflict. Presence is also strengthened through deliberate focus. Direct your attention to what matters most, whether it is a goal, a task, or a relationship. When your attention is intentional, distractions lose their power. Noise, drama, and negativity have less impact because your mind is anchored in purpose, clarity, and engagement. Cultivating inner peace requires the integration of detachment, trigger awareness, and boundaries. Presence cannot exist in isolation. It is supported by the practices you have already learned. Emotional detachment prevents automatic reactions, trigger neutralization reduces disturbances, strong boundaries protect your energy. Together, these practices create the fertile ground in which presence and peace can thrive. A key aspect of presence is acceptance. Acceptance does not mean resignation or passivity. It means acknowledging reality as it is without unnecessary resistance. Life is filled with challenges, conflicts, and unexpected circumstances. Accepting what is allows you to respond intelligently rather than react impulsively. Resistance, on the other hand, generates tension, frustration, and distraction. In cultivating inner peace, solitude becomes a powerful tool. Solitude is not loneliness. It is intentional time spent reconnecting with yourself, your values, and your center. In these moments, you recharge, reflect, and restore balance. The more you practice being alone with yourself without distraction, the less dependent you become on external validation or stimulation for your emotional stability. Inner peace is further reinforced through gratitude. Focusing on what is positive, meaningful, or abundant in your life shifts your perspective from scarcity to sufficiency. Gratitude does not ignore challenges, but it creates a mental environment where negativity has less dominance, where your focus is on what nurtures your calm rather than what threatens it. Cultivating presence also involves conscious disengagement from unnecessary drama. Social media, gossip, toxic conversations, and overexposure to others' problems are powerful intrusions that fragment attention and disturb peace. Choosing what you allow into your awareness is a daily exercise in presence. The more selective you are, the stronger your inner equilibrium becomes. Meditation, reflection, and journaling are practical tools for cultivating presence. They allow you to observe thoughts and emotions, identify patterns, and center your mind. Through regular practice, you develop the ability to remain grounded in the midst of chaos, to observe without absorbing, and to respond without being reactive. Presence also transforms relationships. When you are fully present, you listen deeply, speak with clarity, and engage authentically. Others sense your calm and steadiness, which fosters respect, trust, and meaningful connection. You are no longer caught in the emotional turbulence of others because your energy is anchored internally. Another critical component is the practice of conscious pauses. In moments of stress, conflict, or provocation, taking a brief pause allows you to reset, to center yourself, and to respond intentionally rather than impulsively. These small moments accumulate over time, strengthening your capacity for presence and sustaining inner peace under pressure. Cultivating presence means living with intentionality. Each thought, each action, each interaction becomes a conscious choice rather than a reflexive habit. This intentional living drastically reduces susceptibility to external disturbances and allows your inner state to remain consistent, calm, and unshaken. Over time, this consistent practice of presence and inner peace creates resilience. Challenges, conflicts, and criticism no longer penetrate your core. You become like a calm lake. The wind may ripple the surface, but the depth remains undisturbed. Life's chaos may swirl around you, but you are steady, centered, and unbothered. Presence and inner peace also enhance clarity of thought. When your mind is calm and fully anchored in the moment, decision-making improves. Emotional noise no longer clouds judgment. You can see situations for what they truly are, respond wisely, and avoid unnecessary conflict. This clarity allows you to navigate life strategically rather than reactively. Ultimately, cultivating presence and inner peace is the culmination of the journey to being unbothered. It integrates detachment, trigger management, and boundaries into a state of living awareness. You engage fully with life while maintaining control over your inner state. You respond with wisdom, act with intention, and maintain equilibrium regardless of external circumstances. It is a state of being that commands respect, radiates calm, and protects your energy. As you cultivate this presence, you realize that peace is not something you find outside. It is something you build inside. It is a conscious choice, a practice, and a lifestyle. By grounding yourself in the present, accepting reality without resistance, prioritizing your mental and emotional energy, and engaging with intentionality, you create an unshakable sanctuary within yourself. And in this sanctuary, no external force, no person, situation, or event can disturb your calm, compromise your focus, or take away your power.